Welcome to the Empowering Transformation series, how to reduce stress and release trauma, have a peaceful mind, and the power to move forward. Hi, I'm Lori K. Coleman, and today I have Kathy Gruver with me. She is a PhD that has graced stages on 4 continents, including 2 TEDx, 3 cruise ships, and a handful of islands. Her combination of humor, performance background, real-life experience, and formal education makes her well-rounded, in-demand speaker. She hosted the TV show based on her first book, The Alternative Medicine Cabinet, and has earned her PhD in natural health. Dr. Gruver is the 12-time award-winning author of 7 books, including Conquer Your Stress, Workplace Wellness, Conquer Your Stress at Work, and Journey of Healing. She has studied mind-body medicine at the famed Benson Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine at Harvard, and has been featured as an expert in numerous publications, including Forbes, Glamour Fitness, Time, WebMD, Prevention, Huffington Post, and Dr. Oz, The Good Life, and has appeared on over 250 radio TV shows, including Lifetime, NPR, CBS Radio, and Sky News London. In 2015, she had the privilege of creating a stress reduction program for the U.S. military and has been studying psychology and human behavior her entire life. Gruver is a coach, hypnotherapist, and massage therapist, and is also the co-host of the new Fire and Earth podcast. For fun and stress relief, Gruver does flying trapeze and plays Dungeons and Dragons. Welcome, Dr. Gruver. I'm so happy.
I'm so excited to be here. I always listen to that bio and go, where did I have time to do all that?
Well, thank you for living a life that just, wow, serving others. What a beautiful thing.
Thanks. That's why I do it all.
Oh, it's very fulfilling for sure. Let's dive in. Can you talk to us and define what effective communication is?
Yes, this is a huge thing for, pretty much everybody, right? Effective communication is simply when what we need to get across lands the way we would like it to. And we all think it's pretty simple. I throw a ball, you catch it. Woohoo! Done. Well, end of the show. No. The problem becomes when the person misinterprets, misunderstands, doesn't hear us, doesn't get the gist of what we're saying. And we always assume it's the other person, right? We're such great communicators. And often it's the way we're phrasing it. It's maybe our face doesn't match what we're saying. I'm a very expressive person. I used to be an actor. So this does things that I'm not even aware of before I know what I'm saying. So I'm the first one to go when I probably shouldn't be having that reaction. I'm immediately communicating something. So one of the keys to that is making sure that our gestures, making sure that our tone, making sure that everything's in alignment so that what we are really saying lands the way we want it to with the other person. We can't help how they interpret it. Then we have to rephrase. We also have to know what we're trying to say. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think we so often launch into a monologue without really understanding what message we want to communicate. And I think, and I ask this question, whether it's coaching or whether it's communication, what do you want? What do you want to say? What do you want the response to be? How do you phrase it that's going to land correctly on the other person? So I think it's a relationship. It's a dance. Is that effective communication?
That's a nice way of looking at it. It's a dance. That's called fun.
Yeah. Cool.
So I know that we're supposed to be present and listening to who is speaking. What does being present sound like inside your head?
It sounds like that.
Nothing?
Dead silence. Yeah.
Oh.
We typically, unless we're trying to learn something, unless we're really trying to process what the other person's saying, we don't need to be thinking so much about what they're saying. What we tend to think about is, they told this story 5 million times. Or, oh my God, she always ends her sentences with that. Or, I've lived with him for 30 years. I know what he's going to say. Or, oh my God, if they'd shut up, I have this great joke that has to do with that thing they said 5 minutes ago. It's about how we're going to respond. It's about what's for lunch. It's, they're boring. I'm going to think about that cute boy over there. We're so often, when we are thinking, not actually thinking about what they're saying. We're thinking about us. And we call that first first person listening. We're thinking about how we're going to respond, how we're going to react, how that affects us, blah, 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 blah. Second stage listening is really just putting all of our focus on that other person. It is just fully giving them the attention. And this is what psychologists, coaches, hypnotherapists, all that stuff does. We are giving our attention 100% to that other person. Then you get sort of into the third stage of listening, which is global, which is how am I feeling? How are they feeling? What's happening in the room? This is what we have to do when we're leading a business meeting or when we're speaking. Kind of have to take the whole tone of the audience. If I'm doing my talk and I look out and everyone's going, I have to adjust what I'm doing or it's not landing well. So it depends on what stage of that listening you're in. But so often we're in first person. We're more worried about how that affects us. We're not being present and listening with that person. Now, our minds are going to wander. Every 3 to 5 seconds, our brain has something so important to tell us. So it's going to wander to that thing. We just have to bring it back. And that's where tools like meditation and mindfulness and things like gazing, I love doing gazing. You made it sound.
Explain what gazing is. I understand gazing and I love it, but tell our audience what
Yes.
gazing is.
So gazing, a lot of people talk about this, but I did a lot of studying with Eckhart Tolle, and this is a huge thing for him. It's about sitting with someone. Start with a plant, start with a candle, start with your cat, if you are uncomfortable doing that with a human first, but sitting a comfortable different distance across from them and just meeting their eyes, being fully present without thought. So you're not falling below thought where you're in that kind of stage about to fall asleep. You're above thinking. You're conscious and you're present, but you're in total silence. You're not thinking about how pretty their eyes are. You're not thinking about how you ask them to take out the trash and you can still see it in the background. You're not thinking about that cramp in your foot. You're thinking about nothing. And you're just fully present with that other person. And as Eckhart says, when you're in the presence of someone who's being fully present, you can't help but be present with them. So it's a great exercise. Extroverts, we love it. The introverts are like, wait, someone's gonna look at me for 5 minutes? Because I've done this in groups where you can see half the room's like, yeah, let's do it. And the other half's going, no, 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 no. And there's that uncomfortableness for like a minute where there's giggling and people are making faces and they're chattering. And then the room goes quiet and there's just this beautiful buzz of nothingness in the room. And then after 5 minutes, I bring them out of it and there's hugs and there's tears and it is such a connection of intimacy. And you don't want to do that in the middle of a business meeting without warning someone you're going to do that. You don't want to be in the middle of a meeting. That's a little creepy. But it practices that presence. It helps us to remember to just be focused 100% on that other person, completely foregoing what's going on in your own mind. So that's, I do, when I do my stress talks and we have enough time, I tend to do gazing in the group. And it's just, it's such a beautiful exercise.
And, that brings me to a story I'd like to share. So I was a third grade teacher and we had to define what listening looked like. It's just like, what does it look like? And it's like, you look at the person, and we had a little list of what it even looked like. But I remember I went to some different retreats where we had gazing activities and it was just, I felt so understood and loved and, oh my word. And so I came home and like, Scott, my husband, we've been married 31 years. I'm like, honey, let's look at each other. And he's like, huh? He couldn't even handle looking at me for a minute. He just couldn't go there. But it was so sweet that he tried. And then we had a good laugh about it and then moved on, but he wasn't practiced at being able to even look at someone while I wasn't talking, but just to practice even being there.
Well, and especially, and you bring up such a good point, especially in those intimate relationships. I mean, I was married we were together for 20 years. I just recently ended that relationship, but it's, we were constantly finishing each other's sentences or cutting each other off because, he'd be like, oh, have you done that? I'm like, yeah. And one day he went, really? What was I gonna say? And I'm like, crap, I don't actually know. But we were just so used to, or you're cleaning the house and you're having a conversation, you're cooking dinner, you're not with that person. You're doing 13 other things at the same time. And that immediately cuts off that good communication. It cuts that connection. It's like someone cutting the phone cord when you're talking. You're like, wait, what, hello? or it disperses it out so that you're not just really present listening with that person. And it got to the point in our house where if one of us was doing something and we weren't truly giving them the attention, we would stop what we were doing and say, look, you know what, I'm not fully with you right now. And I want to hear what you're saying. Let me finish this email and I'll be right with you. And as an only child, my first thought was, well, I want you to listen to me now. You know, this very like me-centered, but I'm talking and I want to tell you this fun story because it's cute. And we got to the point where we respected that. I would rather have had him say, look, I'm actually not listening to you right now, than pretending to listen and him not actually being there. So it's about setting those boundaries. And I think one of the things of communication is timing. Do you walk into your boss's office in the middle of complete chaos to discuss something? Knowing your audience, knowing how they like to communicate, knowing the timing, and setting up sort of those rules of engagement, I think that's key to good communication, and then decreasing your stress. Because if you're having good communication, it's less stressful.
Sure, for sure. Yeah. Can we, let's see, how can we be to a place of, what can be done to be in a place of responding compared to reacting? So we want to respond in positive ways and not just be reacting. What can we do about that?
Yeah, to me, that just takes space. One of the first exercises I do, well, actually, I'll have you do this. Everybody, right now, if you're in a safe place to do so, close your eyes and just take a deep breath in and out and then open your eyes. Oh, that felt good. Yeah. Didn't take much effort. Might have been your first conscious breath today. Might have been your first conscious breath ever. But in that breath, in that moment, what it allows us to do is pause. And in that pause, in that moment of nothingness, we choose whether we respond or react. And we want first responders, not first reactors. You don't have knee-jerk responses. No one's accused you of over-responding. It's the reactive part. The reactive part comes from this very unconscious, subconscious urge that thing reminds you of that thing that happened before. I think we've all had the experience where like a new boyfriend or a new spouse or something says something to us and it reminds us of that thing that old boyfriend used to say, and we have this giant reaction to it without even pausing to go, not the same person, not the same situation, but it feels the same. Those reactions come from that feeling of it being the same thing. That's one of the ways we react. Reactions tend to come out of stress. We get very reactive and very negatively reactive when we're in a stressed state. And just by taking that pause of that breath for how long did that take? 5 seconds? We calm that fight or flight response down so that we have the ability to bring back in that cognitive thinking, not feeling, and then choose what we're going to do. You're driving down the freeway and someone cuts you off and your immediate reaction is honking and flipping them off and having this big reaction. Whereas if you took a pause for just a second and went, you know what? No one got hurt. Why should I put myself in a stressful position? They're clearly in a state where they feel like they need to do that right now. God bless. I hope you're well. I hope you get where you need to go. Why do I need to up my stress response as a reaction to what the idiot did in front of me? And now it's in the past. It doesn't even matter anymore. He's gone. He's at least one car ahead, which made him go so much faster than he was going before. Why do we want to do that to ourselves? Is that fight or flight worthy? Do we need to mount this giant reaction to something like that? We never know what's going on in somebody else's brain. We never know what's going on in their head. And one of the other things, other than taking that pause, one of the other things I ask myself is, what do I know to be true? I had a grown woman come for a coaching session in my office, and she was so hurt. She was so hurt that this woman in the parking lot that she knows didn't wave back when she waved. And I thought, okay, are we 13? Why are we having this conversation? And I said, well, what do you know to be true? Well, she clearly saw me and she didn't wave. And I said, well, do you know that she saw you? Well, she must have. No, do you know that she saw you? Maybe she was in a rush. Maybe she just got a phone call that her daughter was sick. Maybe she just heard her cat was hit by a car. Maybe she wasn't wearing her glasses and she just saw this blurry face of something. Maybe she didn't have her hearing aids in. And as I went through all these maybes, my client went, oh my God, maybe she didn't see me. And I went, yeah. And if she did see you and ignored you, You will never know that to be true unless you sit her down and say, hey, I was bummed I saw you in the parking lot the other day and I didn't know if you saw me. You will never know unless you ask. And I think we're so loath to ask those questions. We make these assumptions. We make these mind reading things of, well, they had their arms crossed, so they don't like me. Maybe they spilled something on their blouse. We make these assumptions about things, and that leads to a reaction. And I think taking that pause and really that space to make a decision a different way and to ask, what do we know to be true? And do I want to respond or do I want to react? I think that would change everything. I mean, look how reactive everybody is around us. If we could stop that and respond more easily, communication, leadership, government, relationships, everything would be better. But we're not taught to do that. I haven't used algebra once today. But I did have to communicate today. I did have to deal with relationships and tough situations and finance. I didn't use algebra at all. Definitely no geometry. Definitely did not use geometry at all today. Thank God, because I almost failed.
I'm wanting to bring in ego states. You say that we know what's going on in our head. Can you talk about what ego states even is and just go into that ball of wax?
Oh, the ego state. I love ego states. So I do something called resource state. I can't call it therapy because I'm not a therapist, but I work with resource therapy and ego states. So we have, and you know this, when you're now doing this summit, you have a very different persona on than when you're with your husband, than when you're with little kids, than when you meet someone in the park, then when you're out with your girlfriends at the bar. We have these different hats that we put on. Mm-hmm. Those are, in my world, known as ego states. We typically have 5 to 10 that we know well, they're very common, and they kind of take turns driving the bus. They kind of take turns being what we call executive. So right now you kind of have my presenter, scholarly, it's like Capricorn. This is my Capricorn.
I'm Capricorn rising.
Oh, hey! Yeah, so my Capricorn ego state, and this is sort of my gesture for the Capricorn ego state. Very straightforward, I'm going to teach you. But on the same side of that, right over here is my jester. So when I've been saying the funny things, my jester pops in for just a moment and goes, ooh, say something about geometry. That could be funny. And then when it lands well, the jester goes, keep the thing about geometry. On this side of myself, I have my sort of like my office clerk who runs around and grabs facts. So the second you say ego state, he goes, oh, grab, ego state. Oh, here's the ego state stuff. So we all do this every day. We do this all day. This is not some theory. This is actually wired in our brain. So one of the keys to using the ego states is to bring the right one forward at the right time. I don't want my Capricorn to be in charge when I'm at home with my boyfriend. And sometimes it's hard because she's a very together, probably my biggest one. She's in charge most of the time because most of the time I'm at work. I have to put on Capricorn. That's how I function. But he gets playful little kid, and you can actually, when I kind of go into playful little kid, you can see my face change and like my body language is different. And, it's much more flowy and much more fun. And I'm smiling and my voice changes a little bit. Whereas if I'm in Capricorn, it's very straightforward. It's a little more deep in my voice. You don't want to bring playful little kid to the office meeting. Probably. Unless you're working at a really fun office. You don't want to bring crazy, wacky comedian into the board meeting unless that's what's needed. And we have ego states that are fearful also. I have my scared little kid that has a fear of abandonment. I also don't want to bring that one in when I'm on stage, or else I'm going to stand up there very small going, I'm saying this stuff, but I don't think they like me. And what if they hate this talk? And what if my, what if my reviews aren't very good? And then my speaking career is going to go and no one's going to buy my books. And, if I let that in, I'm going to be suddenly standing up there terrified that I'm in a room of 1,500 people. Capricorn takes over. So once we identify those ego states and knowing which one we want to bring forward, which one we want to make executive at various times, we're going to function so much better because you're bringing the right you. It's like you don't put the quarterback in as a defensive lineman. The quarterback's the quarterback. When you need him, who you want him to throw to or I love football, who you want him to hand off to. You don't typically mix those roles. Everybody has a role to play. And mapping the ego states is fun. You can do it with someone. I love working with ego states when I do coaching. But, sit down and sort of write out those aspects of yourself And then you
Where
can
do you have a list of the ego states, the different kinds, or is it different for each person?
it is different for each person. I mean, there's there's kind of like business you, and there's like dad you, and there's like playful you, and there's little kid goofy you. Some people have the jester and the comedian. A friend of mine who actually I did a lot of studying with him, he has happy pig.
Wait,
Um,
guess what?
happy pig, where he used to there's actually a series of cards, and I'm looking at them and like, whoops, I can't pull that out of my ear. I wish I would have brought the cards over. I could see them. They're right there.
Oh,
He has there's these cards, and he uses them. They're called inner is it inner wisdom cards, inter wisdom cards. They're great. I can tell you about them later. But there's one. It's this pig sitting in front of all this food, just eating it, and he loves to eat. He loves good food and wine. So once a week, he lets his happy pig come out, and he'll eat whatever he wants. If it's ice cream, if it's cookies, if it's donuts, if it's 4 cups of coffee instead of one, he allows that aspect of himself to come out and be nourished, literally. So
and
ego
not feel
state,
guilty about it. So like, this is the time for this.
yeah,
I'm choosing this,
yeah, it's happy pig time, And then there's something called vaded states, VADED, which are the ones that kind of lurk in the background. It's the scared little kid, it's the abuse victim, it's the neglected child, it's the wife that feels diminished, it's the body image issues, it's the nobody likes me, I'm bullied state. Those kind of hover in the background. And typically those only come out when provoked. Somebody will say something that reminds you of what your nasty uncle used to say, and then that state comes out and you're scared for a while. Those take some pretty intense work. You don't want to play with those. But yeah, mapping them, just writing down those different aspects of you, and then knowing who you're going to call on for which thing. It's a blast. I think it's one of the most fun forms of the work that I do.
I look at it like who's driving the bus,
Yep.
and so like when the scared kid comes out, I need my husband there, and so I just because I get really scared about this whole summit thing, and other times I'm like I can do it, and other times I'm like ah, and so
Yeah.
when I'm having the ah moment, I just tell my husband, and he gives me a hug. He's like, "You've already jumped off the cliff, sweetheart. You can't go back."
And I love that.
And then I just curl up as a little baby in his lap. I'm like, okay, just make me feel safe because I'm a scared little kid,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, okay, let's put on the good big girl pants and go for it.
Yeah, you're
Let
totally
someone else drive the bus, and I put her in the back seat. I'm like, sweetheart, you don't
Yeah.
get to drive right now. No.
I love that you're doing ego state negotiation and you didn't even know it. Yeah. Because we have those moments of conflict. And I love that you brought up that example, because so often we'll be like, yeah, I'll go skydiving. Of course I want to go skydiving. And then you're in the plane going, what the did I, oh my God. One ego state said, yeah, I'm going to go do that thing, because it was executive at that moment. It was in the zone. Everybody else was talking about it. It's the competitive one. It's the risk taker. I'll do that. And then you get in the plane and the little kid comes out and goes, I don't like heights. I don't know who this guy is. What the hell did I sign up for? Same thing with when women typically want to leave a relationship. When they're away from the relationship, they're like, tonight's the night. I'm going to go. He's a jerk. He's treating me terribly. And then you get home and he says one nice thing and you go, well, he's being really nice. And I mean, if I left, he'd be devastated. And you got to pick the ego state that you want to be in. And I see that all the time. Away from home, they're strong. They're ready to leave. As soon as they get back around that guy, his ego state brings out the needy, guilty ego state in you. And then you can't go. And that's one of the things we work with when we do the ego state work. It's very powerful stuff. And I love that you curl up on his lap and get
Just
snuggles and
like
comfort.
I'm a little, just love on me like a little kid, please.
Yeah.
And I'm doing better about stepping into my power and staying in that place. Whereas before I was so afraid I was afraid I'd become powerful and that I would leave my husband. And so I never let myself become powerful because there was no way I was going to leave my husband. So I kept myself diminished so I wouldn't outgrow him.
Oh, wow.
And so, and then I'm finally like, wait, I'm going to love him no matter what I am, no matter how successful I am. And he's going to love me the same. So just go grow up and be who you're meant to be. And it's been beautiful. I was like, oh, should have done that a decade ago.
Yeah, but you did it, and I love it.
But I did it now. I did it a couple years ago.
To that.
So,
yay!
So anyway,
You're my new favorite person.
let's see. Let's jump into on what you focus on grows. Because I know when I focused on, I'm going to be more of what I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
more of that came to my life.
Yep.
So tell us why that works.
Yes, I love this. So I'm going to do an example first. So
Okay.
everybody, wherever you are, I want you to look around the room and I want you to find everything you can that's red. Memorize as many things you can that are red. Ooh, got a lot of red in here. Okay. Get it all in. Think of all you can that's red. Awesome. Now close your eyes and try to recall everything you saw that was blue. I know, it's vastly unfair, right? Okay, but the blue stuff didn't disappear. It's still in the room. You weren't looking at it. So this is how it is with positive things and negative things. If all you're focused on seeing is the negative, you're going to miss all those positive, beautiful things. Now, in defense of our brain, we are wired to constantly scan the environment for threats. This is how our brain protects us. Is a bear going to jump out? Is the dinosaur going to come? I'm mixing all of my eras. Is there a car around the corner? Is that thing a snake? Oh no, that's a hose. Okay, we're fine. It looks for stuff that's wrong. Some of us are wired a little more for that. When my grandmother was alive, she died when I was a little kid, but I remember, like, if you were 2 minutes late for dinner, she had you dead in a ditch. Didn't consider traffic, didn't consider you got held up at the dead in a ditch. Now, I don't know where she got dead in a ditch. No one in my family ever died in a ditch. I did extensive 23andMe research. No one's been dead in a ditch. So, but that's what she thought. She immediately went to the negative. And we all know that person, a mother, a sibling, a girlfriend, maybe it's us. We immediately jump to that negative thing. What if, and it's this big catastrophe. Our brain can only focus on 5 plus or minus 2 things at any given time. And what we focus on grows, just like the whole red blue thing. So if we're taking up that 5 plus or minus 2 things with negative stuff, we're just going to attract more and more negative stuff to it. You probably weren't thinking about how your feet feel in your shoes right now, right? You are now, because I brought it to your attention. So now it's one of those 5 plus or minus 2 things. This is also I think it's called resonant dissonance, where once something's in your vision, that's all you see. I bought my blue Mazda CX-5 and suddenly realized everybody and their mother in Santa Barbara had a blue Mazda CX-5. There weren't more of them. I was just aware of them. So now every place, they go, oh my God, I thought this was a unique car. No, everybody had them. Only once I started focusing on it. What we focus on grows. Here's the other thing with our brain. It moves towards things that we know. It moves towards things that are comfortable to us. This is why so many women stay in those unhappy relationships. Their brain is more comfortable and safe in the known bad thing than in the scary, unknown, maybe could be better thing. When we fantasize about stuff, when we daydream about stuff, when we're talking about our future, the more positive we can put into that, our brain becomes to know that and will move us towards that. Our brain doesn't understand the difference between what we're thinking about and imagining and what's actually happening. So this is why we wake up from dreams and we're like, why didn't you defend me from that dinosaur? And your husband's like, what are you talking about? It feels really real to us. If I had you all right now think about the worst day of your life, like really be in it, please don't. You'll have a physiological reaction like you're in it again. We can get sucked into movies and books. And I cried so hard at the end of Harry Potter when one very specific character died. It was real to me. You know, for those that didn't read, I'm not going to say who it was. Our brain thinks we're in that. So if we're fantasizing about negative stuff, our brain is like, oh, I guess we're in that negative thing. And it's going to continue to look for negative stuff. If we change the ending of that, if we visualize something and we're doing a do-over where maybe a situation happened at work that you didn't handle great, maybe the communication didn't go the way you wanted it to, maybe you snapped at your kid rather than being patient with them. Do a do-over, play it over and over again in your head. You're probably going to anyway. But this time change the ending. Make it positive. Make that meeting with the boss so productive and so good. You signing your name on that sales list and shaking hands and saying, good to be working with you, Joe. The more you do that kind of thinking, the more your brain looks for that, and the more your brain will lead you to those opportunities because that's what it's trained to do. So it's really about shifting your perspective, about looking for those things that you truly want. And again, it comes down to what you want. And we can tell you, oh, I don't want this. How do you want to feel? Well, I don't want to feel angry. Okay, well, how do you want to feel? Not angry. Okay, that's how you don't want to
It's
feel.
so hard, at least for me, to say what I want. I never thought that for some reason, I didn't think I had the right to know what I wanted.
Yeah.
I go around serving everyone else, and me, I'm in the equation. What?
Yeah. Well, and that's so common for women because we are the caregivers. We're taking care of the kids and the husband and the dog and the job and so often. So yeah, what do you really want? And which ego state gets to make that decision to circle back and bring that all in? And then once you do know what you want, just focus on that. And it's so funny, be specific. When I was an actor in Los Angeles, I was performing and I wanted to be an actor. And so I was I want to be an actor. I'm an actor. I'm an actor. Okay, well, I am an actor. I'm doing things. Okay, I want to be a professional actor. Wait, what does that mean? Yeah, I've done shows for public. I guess I'm a professional actor. Oh, I want to be a paid actor. I want to be a paid actor. And that's what I started to affirm.
So many, please.
Yeah. And I got my first paid gig. I was doing touring children's theater all up and down the state of California. And it was paying me $6.50 an hour. And the universe went, you're being paid. And I went, crap, I should have been more specific. Numbers. The universe loves numbers. How many clients do you want? How much do you want to make? How many weeks a year do you want to take off for vacation? Craft your reality and then affirm it. Put up anchors, put up photos of it, talk about it, do a vision board. Because the more you do stuff like that, it's, The Secret and What the Bleep Do We Know and Think and Grow Rich. The more you focus on that stuff, the more it's going to grow. So what do you want? And then go for it.
Yeah. No, it's easier said than done, but it needs to be done. It needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, there's so many questions. I think we've already been 30 minutes. Oh, that's not fair.
That's because I'm talking. Okay, I'll not talk anymore. Go ahead.
No. If you have time, I'll keep you with more questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for you guys. Absolutely.
So let's see. Let's go back into the communication. So how can we have more compassion for others who are viewing the world differently than us? And, I don't know. And to be able to support positive, needful changes. It's like things need to change, but we need to have compassion and love. And how do you work with opposite views? And, ooh, baby.
Yeah. So us versus them.
Yeah.
Well, and it's really interesting because, and I can say that trite thing. If you get right down to it, we're all just human beings and we all have the same heart. We all have the same blah, blah, blah. That's true, but that doesn't work. All right. So we have an auditorium of 500 people and we're going to play volleyball. So I say, okay, all the guys are over there. All the girls are over there. We split the room 50-50. Those people are now other. I'm us. They're them. Oh, no, you know what? I don't want to divide that up. We're going to do, okay, no. Brown-haired people over there, blonde-haired people over there. Well, now half the men and women are now shifting. So a second ago, that person who was other is now us. Well, no, let's shift it again. Anybody with a birthday in the first half of the year, we're on this side. Anybody with July through December goes over there. And suddenly we've reordered it again. There is always going to be an us and there's always going to be a them. It depends on what criteria you're using. Ultimately, we all have something in common. We all have parents. We all, know someone that died of cancer. We're getting to a point where we all know somebody who's been sick with COVID. We all know somebody who, has suffered through some illness. There's all these things that bring us together. And if we are so anchored to being right, if we are so anchored to being in that thought state, and it's our thoughts that make our egos exist. I'm talking now ego, not ego states. Eckhart Tolle talks about that. When we are so in that opinion of having to be right, the only way we can feel good about ourselves is to make everybody else be wrong. Oh, well, you brunette people, blah. Oh, now it's guys. Oh, you guys, blah. Oh, it's now the first part of the year. Oh, you first part of the year people are wrong. The only way we can feel right and bigger is to make the other part wrong. Somebody always has a different opinion than us. Somebody wants turkey gravy. Somebody wants chicken gravy. It's like, it gets down to the stupidest things. We have to get out of our egos and be present with other people. We just have to be beings and not worry about the doing, not worrying about those opinions. Because if you liked me until I said how I was voting, I'm still the same person. And you can either respect my views or not. The other thing to remember is every action that people do, something led them to that action. And we probably don't know what it was.
And that's where the compassion needs to come in.
Yes.
We need to look at things with compassionate hearts and
Yeah.
eyes.
And talking to people with different opinions. Not yelling at people with different opinions, but talking about it. And, you know, when the whole Black Lives Matter thing, you know, really got up with what recently happened with George Floyd, my boyfriend is very activist-y. I'm not. I will write letters, I'll sign petitions, but he's very, like, he was feeling so passionate about the subject. And I said, do you understand where racism comes from? And we had this long conversation about what would make someone look at a group of people with hate. And it was such a fascinating conversation. And I grew up in Pittsburgh, where there was a lot of racial disparity in my community. My father worked in a neighborhood that was probably 90% Black. We witnessed a lot of poverty in those neighborhoods. We witnessed a lot of violence in those neighborhoods. And I can completely understand why so many things unfolded the way they did. None of it, I mean, we make stuff right and wrong. You know, it's tough because there's a way that these things got to this way. I'm not justifying it in any way, but having compassion for what happened to the people that got them to that place. You know, there was a little girl in grade school who, she had it out for me. She used to tease me. She used to push me. She used to beat up on me. She would say horrible things to me. And this was 4th or 5th grade. And I remember at that point having the ability to kind of step out of that and go, what must this kid be dealing with at home? That in 4th grade, she's using such violence and such violent language against me, who was just sort of an innocent bystander. And I began to have compassion for what in the world was this little girl going through, that she was now taking that out on me. Now, that didn't make what she was doing to me right. Certainly didn't make it feel better, you know, any better when she was actually bullying me. But as I was able to step out of that and look at that other person perspective and say, God, she's hurting. And that broke my heart, and that made me so compassionate to the struggles that she must have seen. Again, it doesn't excuse away the behavior, but if you can be compassionate for what brought someone to that place, for why those fears exist, for why that anger exists, then we can move forward with a little more compassion. That was a very long answer.
No, that's good. And I think we need to look at ourselves very carefully. Like, is there something in me that could be perceived in this other way? I remember when I was in high school, I went to a military ball with a Black friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And my grandmother was she's like, what? I'm like, there's nothing wrong with this, Grandma. But to her, you know, she's passed on. She was, I don't know, 1900, what age? But anyway, you know, so not to excuse that, but I'm like, wow. It's just like, it's like, wow, there is racism in my family.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it didn't transfer to me. I was willing to go out with this guy and have a date. And I even, we invited this beautiful Black woman to come live in our home for 6 months. She was homeless. And I felt God tell me to do that for her. And I didn't know her well, but I knew that I was meant to serve her in that way. And so I don't see the color.
Yeah.
And it hurts me, you know, that people are suffering.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. And I hear it too. And I remember driving through neighborhoods and my dad would say, you know, there'd be a house that was clearly someone living in, but sort of run down. And then the one next to it would be completely burned to the ground. And then the one next to that would be covered in graffiti with plastic in the windows. And then the one next to that would maybe kind of have someone sort of living in it, but it looked terrible. And it's like, how do you break that cycle? How do you get out of that? And I remember my father always driving me through those neighborhoods. And I never quite understood why, until I realized he's showing me this thing that exists still, you know, when the best job these people can get is $8 at a fast food restaurant as a manager. how do you break this cycle? And how do you break this cycle of hate and this cycle of this ingrained, indoctrinated prejudice? And I don't know the answer to that. I think it is love, and I think it's compassion, and I think it is being able to step out of your own ego and saying, why are they like that? What
Right.
happened in their lives to make that be their reality? And then again, having patience and compassion for that. And it takes a lot of strength to do that.
Yeah. Can you talk about that other kind of ego? I think that's where we get into trouble a lot of times.
Yeah, it's that ego identity. And Eckhart Tolle talks about that a lot. It's we think our thinking self is that ego. That's the one that gives us our identity. That's how we know we're alive. If I stop thinking, then who am I? If I stop, identifying those things around me as good or bad, then who am I? And in reality, there's just real reality. It's not good or bad. We place that on it. There's not a good or bad person. There's not a good or bad cat. There's not, it's like, it is that thing exists, and then we judge whether it's good or bad. My favorite parable, there was a farmer living in this small town. He had one son and one horse in a huge field. And the villagers gathered around and said, oh my gosh, you have all this opportunity, you have all this space, all this field, but just with one son and one horse, you can only do so much. That's a shame. And the farmer said, we'll see. And the next day, all these wild horses came in. And the villagers gathered around and went, oh my gosh, you have all these horses now. This is so great. You can plow more field. You are so lucky. And the farmer says, we'll see. And the next day, the son gets on one of the wild horses to kind of train it to plow the field. And he's thrown from the horse and he breaks his arm. And the villagers gather around and say, oh my gosh, your one son, you're never going to be able to make it now. This is so horrible. What dumb luck. And the farmer says, we'll see. And the next day, the army came through and took every able-bodied young man. And because the son had broken his arm, he was spared from going to the army and sure death. And the villagers gathered around and said, oh, your son broke his arm. You're so lucky. The farmer said, we'll see. These things that they thought were good and bad, these things that we think are horrible experiences or horrible opportunities or whatever, or lost opportunities, we don't know if they're good or bad. And I have some of my very dear friends and clients that has said things to me like, cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me, because they learned from that, they grew from that, they got healing from that. So I think if we can stop the thinking and the judging and just be in that place where we are when we're gazing, just be in that being rather than that doing and that thinking, we'll be better off. We'll be more compassionate. We'll be more patient. We'll just be exuding pure love rather than that judgment and that hatred and that prejudice and that it's positive, it's negative thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that story.
Yeah.
If we have time to look at different communication styles and what we can do when those styles really trigger us, and how we can handle that stress from being triggered from somebody's communication style. And then I will let you go.
Yeah. Oh, no, I love this. This is my favorite. So if you look at NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, they talk about the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic. Those are the three major ways that we learn, the three major ways that we communicate. I am a visual kinesthetic. I'm gesturing. I'm very active. I love visual. I love, sort of looking at you by looking at the camera. You play an audiobook for me and I hear, I'm not going to get any of it. You might as well be playing white noise. It does not do it for me. Because I grew up as a dancer, my father was a visual kinesthetic. If I'm going to describe something, I need to show you, okay, so you do this stretch and I want to show you what it is. And there were so many times that I was trying to explain something to my husband and I would stand up and I'd act it out and he'd go, can you just tell me? No, I can't sit still and explain this to you. I got to show you what I did. That's my communication style. As an auditory, he found it very assaulting and very big and very in his face, and he just wanted it to be explained to him. I don't learn that way. Now, knowing that he was an auditory style, if I start out by more calmly, slowly explaining it, more verbal, less gestures, less acting it out, he got what I was saying better. And this is one of the reasons why one of the few reasons I love watching CNN, other than my very unnatural crush on Anderson Cooper. When they have their guests, I know I'm not the only one, when they have their guests on, they have these pundits on, they're asked a question, and they either start typically one of two ways. They'll go, look, blah, 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 blah. Or they say, listen, I hear your point, blah, 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 blah. We immediately know what their learning style is by whether they say look or listen. If I say, I feel you, probably kinesthetic. Oh, I totally hear what you're saying, auditory. Oh, I see your point, visual. If you can listen for those cues and you can kind of see how the person communicates, you now knowing this can be better heard by matching their type of communication style. If you need to talk to your boss and you know he's visual kinesthetic, go into his office. Don't call him on the phone. If the person is auditory, you probably don't want to be in their office, in their face, doing some big presentation. Call them on the phone. Then there's also the direct and the indirect. The direct person, get this all the time. I'll text my client, how about 4 o'clock for your session? Oh, well, they respond, oh, I can't do 4 o'clock because I have a 4:15 dog groomer's appointment because my dog Fluffy rolls around in these burrs. Well, they're really burrs, they're brambles. But I mean, every year she rolls around in those and, she's a show dog. So I have to go get, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, shut up. Do you
say, it doesn't work.
Do you want 4 o'clock or not? And so I'll read this 20-page text. Time is ticking. I could have seen 13 other people. And I get to the end, and what I want to say is, that's great. Do you want 4:30? I know that if I want to build good rapport with her, if I want to have a good relationship, if I want to have a good session, I need to know that she needs to know she was heard. So I might say something short like, oh my God, I totally get it. I have a cat. We do love our pets. So good that you're taking the time to take care of him. How about 4:30? Would that work? I tend to be very direct in my communication. I will respond to an email, and then before I send it, realize I should probably start with, hope you're doing great, or how's your day going? I forget. 4 o'clock. I mean, that's all I want to say. If you know that these other people are very direct, and you're one of those rambling, I need to give you 20 minutes of backstory, figuring out a way to make that a concise thing, to go to that direct communicator, you're going to be heard so much better. Here's the other thing direct communicators really like to hear. I have 3 questions. It's going to take 5 minutes. When can we do that? Oh, because if we know what the end point is, I'm going to be so much more apt to have you in my office to talk to you about whatever that thing is. 3 questions, 5 minutes. If you say, can we talk? I know this is going to be a 2-hour thing. I don't have time for a 2-hour thing. So before you even arrived in my office, I've tuned you out. I'm not listening. What do you want? What are those points? Give that to the direct communicator. If they're an indirect communicator, talk about the cat, talk about the backstory, tell them the origin story of where you found that thing. You're going to build that rapport better. But it's a matter of understanding how they communicate. And once you're sort of aware of that, you're going to be noticing it now. And then matching them. It's about matching them. That's how you build rapport in that communication.
Yeah. And what about the part, excuse me, about how we might have stress when, so for instance, I was in a group and someone was going like this, talking to me, and it was just like a knife coming to my heart. I'm like, wow, and we were supposed to give feedback. I'm like, I wouldn't suggest you do that, because that was my experience from that. And
yep.
So how do you suggest when something ruffles your feathers that you release that stress? I have lots of my own little things I do, but I'd love to hear what you do.
I think one of the things that we're so loath to do during communication is to ask questions and to stop the person when it's not landing right. Whoa, I hear you're so passionate about this subject, but it's hitting me a little hard. Can we just take a step back and can you rephrase that for me so that I can get it? I think we're so loath to jump in. Yeah, or I was coaching a woman and she said, I just don't get my boss. And I said, okay, well, give me a situation. Well, I turned in this report and he handed it back to me and said, make it better. And I went, oh, okay. Well, then what'd you do? She goes, well, I went back to my office. And I went, well, do you know what make it better means? She's like, no. Did you clarify what make it better means? No, he scares me. You can't do anything with make it better. That's like me saying, can you go buy me a shirt? What kind of shirt? What size? For me, for the cat, for the boyfriend, for winter, for a talk? Do you want a red shirt? What size are you? How much you want to spend? What material do you want? What the heck does shirt mean? I understand that you want me to make this report better. can you give me a few suggestions? Do you want a bigger font? You want more colors? You want more graphs? You want puppets? What do you need to make this better? And I think we're so, it's, oh, I can't question authority. That is not questioning authority. That's us for clarification. If I send you to the store and you come back and you don't get eggs, and I'm mad that you didn't get eggs, but I also didn't put eggs on the list, I have no right to be mad at you. I think we have to ask for clarification. And if something is not landing correctly with us, take a time out. And if you find yourself getting stressed, if it's a deep, heated conversation, you're allowed to stop. This is not a game show where there's a timer running. You're allowed to say, wow, you know what? You just threw a lot at me. And I want to take a second to process that because I'm starting to just tune out because it's a lot. Can we resume this in 5 minutes? Let me take a quick walk. I think those are the three big things is asking for clarification, taking a break, and stopping when something isn't landing right. I have clients all the time that'll launch into a story and they'll tell me two names and then they'll go, and then she said that he said that and then she went off and I went, okay, wait, I don't know who you're talking about anymore. Oh, Beth said, oh, okay, Beth. Okay, that was who we started, they know what they're saying. We don't. So I'll stop them and say, look, you've totally lost me. No, who's eating the hot dog? Oh, okay, Beth. Okay, good. I think it's totally okay to do that. We have to do that or else the conversation is going to go nowhere. Now, if you absolutely do not care about the story and you don't care what they're saying to you and you're never going to see them again because you're sitting on a bus going downtown, maybe you don't want to take the time to do that. I do recommend it because one, it's good practice. If you can do it with the guy on the bus, you can do it with the boss. And it's a good communication exercise where there's no consequence to it. Communication take practice. You got to practice this stuff.
Yes, practice. No, I really appreciate the specific examples. I need specific examples.
I have dozens of specific examples.
I need words to say, then I will practice saying them.
Yay!
Okay, so I feel a little bit unprepared. I didn't get to look at if you were offering a free gift to connect with you. I apologize for being a little bit clueless in this.
No, you're great.
So
you're great.
Do you want to talk about that?
Oh no, you're doing so good. You're my new favorite person. I totally admire. I know, I'm serious. I totally admire what you're doing, and we both wore the same color, so I mean, we're already kindred. And I never wear this shirt. It's so funny. I specifically put this on for you today. I'm offering a free guided my mini meditation. It's great for us Type A people, us Capricorn rising people, who don't think we can meditate, who don't think we can slow down. It's become my favorite meditation. It's short. You can do it anywhere. You don't have to close your eyes. You don't have to contort yourself into some bizarre position. So that's what I gave for that. Yeah, and I also do free discovery calls if you want to talk about coaching or stress, or I coach for communication, public speaking, work-related stuff, personal stuff. I'm doing a lot of relationship coaching these days. I don't know why. It's not like we're stuck in the house with the same person all the time.
There's going to be either a lot of babies or a lot of divorces coming up.
Yeah, and it seems like for some reason there's not going to be a lot of babies. I just read a thing about how the pregnancy rate's dropping.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. Better communication. See, would help with that.
Oh, thank you so much for your time. Oh, this was so fun. This is what makes it worth it. I'm like, oh, I had fun with that person. I made a new friend, and hopefully the audience will gain and be blessed. And it's like, okay, here's my gift to you.
Yay. I hope so. This is why we do this, right? I mean, it's about reaching people. And I thank you so much for the opportunity to do that.
Oh, well, thank you again for your time. And I would like to say goodbye to my audience. I hope your day is filled with peace and laughter, and that you may be brave enough to communicate in a different way. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.